Welcome back to another episode of the Youth for Neuro podcast. My name is Pranali, and I'm a high school junior and your host for this episode. Today, I'm joined by Chau, an undergraduate student at Stanford University studying computer science with a focus on biomedical computation. To provide some background, Mr. Chau completed his high school diploma at Rick Grady High School and also pursued his high school diploma at TAMS. He is pursuing a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science at Stanford University with interest in AI applications in the healthcare environment. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me onto the podcast.
Yeah, of course. So, starting off, I wanted to ask you about the college application process. And so, in applying to prestigious universities such as Stanford, what aspect of your application did you particularly prioritize? And how did you ensure that your unique qualities and experiences stood out to those officers who were looking at your profile?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so I would definitely say, and I think you'll find some of the same advice, like from like other students who've gone into like top universities, is like you kind of want to have like a narrative in your application. And I will definitely say, like my narrative was very centered around like neuroscience. Okay, because I started becoming like really interested in neuroscience like maybe sophomore year. I just did some like studying on my own, just like reading some textbooks and stuff because took like a biology class. Thought it was neuroscience was really cool, so decided to focus on that. And then I started doing things like uh, getting involved with in the International Youth Neuroscience Association. And then, like you mentioned, I applied to TAMS after my sophomore year. And it was through that program. And by the way, I think it's a great program. I recommend it if like if you're in Texas and you're like a sophomore or freshman. Um, but yeah, like I got the opportunity to do like really cool undergraduate research at the University of North Texas. I had some really great mentors, and my research helped me in that not only it gave me valuable experience, but I was able to do cool projects. And then I competed in like the International Science and Engineering Fair. I believe it's like sponsored by Regeneron right now. But yeah, that was unfortunately like the year that I competed. It was COVID, so I didn't get to go in person. But um, yeah, I would say that's like the main aspect of my application. Just like uh, it was really like my passion for neuroscience that stood through, and I think like the admissions officers were able to see that.
Yeah, and I also wanted to tag on that. I actually go to school in Frisco, and a lot of my friends, they go to TAMS, and I think research is like a really big aspect of that. And I think what I've seen is that like a lot of TAMS people also go to ISEF, and they have amazing science projects. And unfortunately, I'm a junior right now, but to anyone who's listening to this, that they're sophomores, hopefully they do, take your advice and apply to TAMS. I'm a year late, but hopefully, looking back, I wish I did that. But my next question is,
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
yeah. My next question is, can you narrate how you went through the actual application process? Like, why did you choose specifically to focus under the AI applications in neuroscience?
Um, so actually, I will say I wasn't really looking at AI too much before. Like I think AI was more of a thing when I got to Stanford, maybe like halfway through my freshman year. It was something I want to pursue, but I guess like neuroscience or biomedical computation, I just thought like I thought like logically those were the majors that aligned closest with my interests and like my previous research experience, my background, etc. So like I just thought it would fit with my overall like like college applications, and that's also something I would recommend to I guess like juniors and seniors thinking about how like when they apply to college, like I would say pick a major not because you'll think like, oh, this is a major that not many people will do. I'll have a better chance of getting into like Harvard or something. Like I wouldn't say pick like I don't know, like don't say you want to major in linguistics unless you are like, you're interested in it or you have some prior experience in that department because like it wouldn't make sense, right? Like if a lot of your stuff is like in math, but you say you want to major in linguistics because you'll think it'll give you a better chance of getting into a school, like I wouldn't recommend that. So yeah, just be honest with yourself. And also like just do research on the school because they have like, different schools have different programs, different majors, different opportunities. So I think that's something that high school juniors and seniors should definitely do while they're in the process.
Yeah, and I wanted to focus specifically on neuroscience programs. And you applied to Stanford's program. So why did
Mhm.
you choose ultimately in the end to go with Stanford, not only in their prestige, but also, a little bit more deeper into why you chose to go with them in the end?
Okay, so basically like why Stanford?
Yeah.
Um, so let's see. I was actually deciding between like Stanford and Brown because I applied to like the BSMD for Brown
Yeah.
and then I got that. So I was like deciding between that. And I think like well honestly it wasn't that hard for me because okay, this is like kind of silly, but one is like the weather in Cali is like better, right? It was just like better. It's like, okay, I kind of want to go see what that's like. But like more importantly, I think if I chose to go to Brown, I would kind of like, well, in a way, I would be like restricting myself to go down that path of like medicine, and I wasn't uh, completely sure if I wanted to go down that route. So, and Stanford gave me the opportunity to like explore different fields, and whether it be tech or healthcare or something else. So I just thought that would be better. And I think the third option was like the culture of entrepreneurship. I think like startups are very cool. I actually interned at a biotech startup last summer. It was a really great experience. But yeah, like the entrepreneurial culture really drew me in as well. So yeah, that's what led me to make that decision, I guess.
Right. And going forward, now you're at Stanford. And so, your experience in terms of like the curriculum and also like faculty support, how do you think that Stanford is cultivating your neuroscience interests?
Um, oh, I see. Okay, so well, first of all, I want to mention that Stanford does not actually have a neuroscience degree, which I think is kind of
Oh,
disappointing. But they do have like a biology degree and with like a neuroscience concentration. So that's something I guess like if anyone's listening to this, like considering like, oh, why is there no neuroscience? Like you could do biology with a concentration in neuro. There's also like psychology, which is like tangentially related. And then there's like a program called symbolic systems that I was actually looking at that for a while that has a neuroscience concentration as well. So it's not like your options are limited. But in terms of um, like supporting my interest in neuroscience, like so in my freshman winter quarter, I took like an intro sem like on neurodegenerative diseases and like we did like lab experiments and it was like really cool. Like the class wasn't super big. So I guess in that sense, I was able to meet a lot of other, people in my grade interested in neuroscience, got hands-on experience with some cool techniques, learned a lot. So that was like really interesting. I think the faculty in general at Stanford are very supportive of like helping you out. Like they'll if you go up to like a professor after class about like major advice or what classes should I take, I think they're more than willing to help you out. And in terms of research, so I actually last year I also did research at the School of Medicine in a neuroscience lab, and yeah, the professor was like really nice. I had like good mentors. So I think yeah, I would say like at Stanford, the support if you're interested in neuroscience, it's like you can you know there's so many opportunities and a lot of people to help you out. So yeah, I definitely don't feel limited in that aspect over here. So yeah.
Yeah, and my next question is, there's so much academics, like there's a lot of studying and tests and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So how do you balance that rigor with extracurriculars and, social life as well now that you're in college?
Okay, wait, so sorry, I think you cut off a bit. So
Oh,
the
you're
question is
fine.
like
Yeah, I can
how do I
repeat.
balance like
Yeah.
academic life with social life and like
Yeah, that's right.
or okay. So yeah, yeah, so definitely it's definitely tough. Like um I think it's all about managing your time, which I haven't like by any means perfected that yet. It's still a work in progress for even for someone like me, right? Like uh just like just being mindful of what you're doing and like and for me that's been things like spending like less time on like social media or stuff like that and so like I can spend more time like with my friends or like in extracurricular clubs, like research things like that. Let's see, internships. So actually, like, I feel like those are kind of a grind. Like, honestly, not even at Stanford, it's just like kind of everywhere. Like you'll ask any college students, like internship grinding. I recently like got an offer, which is like great. So I've kind of taken a break from internship applications, but I was doing like quite a bit like throughout the fall quarter and a bit like early in the winter. Um, but yeah, to answer your question, I think it also depends on your course load, but if you take like a reasonably difficult course load, it's all about managing your time, like your priorities, like I'm just gonna like use an example, but like let's say you want to go out to like a party like on like Saturday or something like you got to make sure you turn in your P set on time, you watch these lectures, you read whatever papers or books that you need to read before you go out. So it's all about like time management and making sure your priorities are straight. So yeah.
Yeah, and I actually also struggle with time management. I think it's like you're never fully like 100% there with it, but I think college would really like you really need to learn how to actually manage your time because you have so much free time available to you and you really
Yeah, no, you
how to
definitely do. Yeah.
maximize that. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, like I remember like the transition like from Reedy to Tams, like I had so much more free time at Tams because like well when I went to Reedy, it's like you're in school like for what, like 9 to like 5 or something like that, pretty much like so it's just like spending a lot of time in school and like but at Tams like you have less time in class, but you have more time to do other things, but you also need to use it pretty wisely or else you're going to get behind, right? So yeah, that's definitely a good point there.
Yeah. And I wanted to actually talk a little bit more about internships. So not only about your past experiences, but also in applying to internships. Do you have any like advice to anyone who wants to apply?
Yeah, so for let's see, internships. I think um just like general advice. So I would say like if you're applying for like a summer internship and you're like a freshman, like well, first of all, I would say like I would say like people say it's a numbers game. I think that's partially true. Like you can't send unless you're like I don't know, unless you have like connections or your resume is like just stacked, like you can't send like 10 applications and expect to, get an offer out of like those 10 or something. So like, apply to like a decent number. Like don't overwhelm yourself with like hundreds of applications, but like, apply to a decent number, look at what's available. Um, and that sort of leads me into my next point, which is like your resume. I would say one page max. Like no one's gonna look at more than one page. I would say like make it the best you can, and that sounds like sort of general, but like I'll go into a few details. Like um, quantify like the work you did. Be very specific. Like if you did research, like don't just say like, oh, I worked in a neuroscience lab on Parkinson's. Like you need to say what part of the project you work on, what you got out of the project, maybe like who you potentially worked with, and if you did any other projects in the lab. Um, like I guess for techie people, like put your GitHub on there. Like you may or may not have a GitHub, but honestly, that doesn't matter too much. Um, let's see what else. I think just having a lot of experience is a good thing to put on your resume because I like low key, I think for my like internship stuff, like I think one of the harder parts that people don't think about is getting past like the resume screening because like not many people get past that. Like once you get past that, you're like okay, now I can like really focus on like what they're gonna test me or questions they're gonna ask me. But getting past like the resume screening part, uh pretty difficult. So I would say if you're a freshman or like even if you're in high school, like it's definitely going to be hard while you're doing school, but I would say try to get some experience during the school year, like in the field that you're interested in, and that just like makes you look like a better candidate. So I think in high school, like there's like stuff they have like HOSA, DECA, and like all the usual stuff. I think that's a good experience too. Like you should definitely put on there. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask just generally about research. So I know you went to TAMS, and obviously getting mentors and stuff was way easier since you didn't go there. But
Yeah.
in as a high schooler who doesn't have affiliations with universities, do you have any advice on how to get mentors to actually respond to you and actually say yes to like joining their labs or even like a part-time thing over the
Yeah, yeah. So I would say definitely reach out to like uh professors like that are or yeah, like universities that are generally in your local area. So like uh for Frisco, for example, like I think UTD, UNT, like I remember like some of my friends like that went to Reedy, like they even did research. Obviously, this is remote, but like they did remote research with people from UT Austin. So that's like pretty impressive, right? Um, so I would say just reaching out to like local schools is a good idea. Also, like reach out to multiple. Like I think people honestly give up too easily when like the first few professors don't respond to their emails. But you have to understand like these people are busy, right? And like I said, part of it's a numbers game. You just got to keep shooting your shot. Um, and also one underrated tip is like following up. Like I've gotten like a lot of emails from just sending like a follow. Like I've gotten a lot of responses from just sending a follow up email, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we have this opportunity," or like, "Oh yeah, do you want to hop on a Zoom call and talk about like how you could possibly contribute?" So just like sending a follow up email, like first of all, it'll tell them like, "Oh yeah, this person actually wants it. Like they're actually willing to invest time into helping me or whatever." And yeah, they just like to see that you're committed if you really want it. And sometimes like the first time people forget or they overlook you, you know, and if they don't respond to the follow-up one, just like, that's fine. Like just move on, just go to the next opportunity. So that's what I would say about research. Yeah.
Okay, and this leads me to my last question, and it's just general advice that you would give to a high school student who wants to pursue maybe neuroscience or biomedical computation, something just general.
Yeah, I would say, um, well, first of all, I would say research is a really good, like specifically for neuroscience and biomedical research. I think uh, being involved in with the research project, also, it doesn't have to be like, I know a lot of good research projects come out from like having mentors, at universities, but I also know like at ISEF or like other research competitions, like a lot of high schoolers actually do this stuff on their own, which is like pretty impressive. Like, they come up with their own projects. So I think just getting involved with in like a project, whether it's with the help of a university or by yourself, is a good way to explore. I think reading about, like recent developments in like technology in those fields could get you excited about something, and then from there on you could learn more. Just study like stuff on your own. uh Try to find like competitions and like excel in them, and then that will also help you with like college stuff. So yeah, that's my general advice for that.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today, Alan. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, and LinkedIn. And until next time, this is Pranali signing off.